This is a special presentation from the Brighton Central School District Board of Education.
Good evening. Welcome to the Brighton Central School District Public Board of Education meeting for Tuesday, January 7th, 2025. This is our first meeting of the new year. I wish it were under better circumstances. As a community and as your school board, we are here in front of you with heavy hearts, trying to comprehend something that seems to evade comprehension. Our community has suffered a terrible tragedy, and our focus as a Board of Education has been, is, and will remain on supporting the students and their families, the staff and their families, and of course, the family most affected by this. We're grateful for the leadership of Dr. McGowan, the mental health teams, specifically Danielle Edmonds and her team at TCMS, and we expect that over the last few days and certainly over the next few weeks, how people grieve and how they feel things will be different for each person. Our absolute commitment as a 7-member school board is to make sure that Dr. McGowan and his team have every resource available to support anyone at any time working themselves through this horrible tragedy. There are moments that any of us sit back and try to wonder how these things can happen, and there are no answers to that. We're grateful for Dr. McGowan's leadership, for the communications he has sent out thus far, and know that for many of us, there will still be troubles ahead in how we process this. As a mostly lifelong member of this community, I know how many great people there are in this community and how people are going to continue to demonstrate kindness and empathy and try to reach out and help each other as best we can. I'll say again, this board is absolutely and unequivocally committed to providing all the appropriate supports for our students and their families, our staff and their families, and again, the family most affected by this tragedy. Before we move forward, I'm going to ask for your thoughts, please, Dr. McGowan.
We couldn't be better supported by all of you, and we thank you for that. This tradition of democracy that we talk about during school board recognition every month, the value that we place on your representation of every community member is significant. And this is a great example of that moment when you're representing the thoughts of many people in our community who are here to support Annie Mancuso and her family, our students and our staff, and we appreciate that and you expressing that so beautifully. Our staff has done a wonderful job supporting our students and each other. We grieve for them. The leaders have done a wonderful job supporting our staff and thinking about every detail to support kids and families and staff members. Our community has been incredibly gracious and thoughtful and supportive in every way. So we think about those people, but most of all we think about our student Annie. We think about her friends, we think about our classmates, we think about the unthinkable, try and wrap our heads around something, anything to make sense out of a senseless situation. More than anything, we think about how to love and care for each other, and that's what we'll continue to do. And that has been what has happened over the last several days and what will continue to happen. We want to emphasize with our community members that they can continue to receive support in all of the buildings, and the middle school has been the epicenter, of course, Annie being a 6th grade student. But at French Road, folks have obviously been deeply affected as well, in Council Rock, as well as our students at the high school and our staff at the high school, our entire school community. And we'll continue to support people and would like to make sure our families recognize and tune into the communication that comes from school about receiving support, talking to a counselor, talking to a staff member, talking to their principal, anybody in any way who needs anything, we're there for them. And as you've said, the support is there and we'll provide that. And you've certainly made clear that we will not rest at all in providing everything that everybody needs. So we'll continue to pray, we'll continue to reflect, we'll continue to think in whatever tradition and space that we do that, whatever is most comfortable to us as humans. But more than anything, we'll continue to love each other and support each other and think about Annie, a wonderful, wonderful young woman, tragically taken, and the contribution that she made to the school community and to all of us. And we'll think about Mary Lassini, her grandmother, who also tragically lost her life. I'd like to ask you all to pause for a moment of silence and reflection in their honor right now. Thank you. Thank you all for your support. And we continue to hold Annie, her mother Sarah, and her father in our thoughts, prayers, and best wishes. Thank you.
Thank you. It seems in some ways a weird thing to have to go forward with all the happenings that are taking place in school, but we're going to do that and run through a lot of the things that happened in December before our break and go through a lot of the reports. So if at any time somebody feels uncomfortable, speak up and we'll give you your space. First up, we provide the opportunity for public participation in every public board meeting. Is there anyone here who would like to speak? Seeing none, we'll move on. Next, with the approval of the amended agenda. The board has received the amended agenda prior to this meeting. Thank you, Kim. Are there any changes or questions with regards to the amended agenda? Motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Karen.
Second?
Seconded by Sue. All those in favor?
Aye.
Next up, we have the approval of minutes from our last meeting, December 17th, which seems so long ago. Any changes, edits, or questions with regards to the minutes from that meeting? Motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Moved by Carrie Lynn.
Second?
Seconded by Christina. All those in favor? Next up, we have our reports. We have a number of different financial reports. We have the treasurer's report for the period ending November 30th, 24, the financial summary for the period ending November 30th, 24, corrective action plan summary for extra classroom activity funds audit for the period ending June 30th, 24. The audit committee, which is Karen, Christina, myself, has had a chance to review that. As also reviewed the extra classroom activity funds financial report for the period ending June 30th, 2024. And then finally, the single audit report for the year ending June 30th, 2024. These reports do require our approval. Are there any questions with regards to the reports? As I said, the audit committee has had a chance to review them and ask any questions. Seeing none, motion to approve the financial reports as described in agenda item 5, letter A.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Seconded, sorry. Moved by Karen, seconded by Esther. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Next up, Dagny, we have our student representative.
Yeah, there's not much as we just got back, but the second quarter and the first semester is going to end January 24th. Many classes are starting to prepare for midterms or final exams for half-year classes, and still college reps are coming to our school and talking to seniors. For sports, after wrapping up the fall season, we had 67 student athletes and coaches receiving all county and all greater Rochester recognitions. Winter sports have continued to be picking up. Brighton boys swimming and diving were the Spencerport Relay champions. Ski and snowboard club starts this Saturday. JV and varsity girls basketball wrapped gifts at Strong Hospital. And our football coach, Coach Leon, was recognized as Coach of the Year for all of Rochester. For clubs, Girls Who Code had their very first meeting the Wednesday before break. The last week before break, Key Club held a warmth drive during the last week to help benefit the Center for the Youth. And all throughout December, Fashion Club was taking clothing donations for their club. For exec, our Battle of the Bruins had a really good turnout, which was our trivia contest. 5 teams competed in a trivia match for a gift card prize. And our food fight school-wide food drive was very, very successful. The 9th grade class came in first place, winning $300 to their class funds. Other than that, the class of 2026 had a fundraiser at Five Guys December 18th. And our Brighton Believes Day, which is an annual event that our school holds, where we take time out of the day to do service projects made by various clubs, teams, and groups. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Dagny. Next up, Board of Education. As noted, this is our first meeting of the new year. In this case, labor relations are also called district operations. Our meeting's coming up in 2 weeks. And I did a summary for what we met on in November. So that meeting's the third Wednesday in January, and I will be there. And then provide an update from that standpoint. Any updates with regards to information exchange? I'm suspecting we're gonna get the same answer for all
Yeah.
three of these as the new year kicks off.
Last meetings were in November, nothing December, and then meetings coming up in the new year.
I had meetings in December, sorry.
No,
Let
I'm
us-
sorry about it.
Legislative committee.
No, I do want to get legislative,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
we've also got
Right.
upcoming
Right.
dates,
No,
but
it's just
information exchange?
exchange,
Okay.
same as
Good.
district operations.
Okay. Legislative.
So we did meet in December to plan for our upcoming legislative breakfast, which is the sort of landmark event of the year for the legislative group. And all board members are welcome to attend that. There's registration information in your district email. We had an opportunity to work with legislative aides on December 9th, where we communicated that to them, the information, essentially our white papers, our position papers, so that they can become familiar with it and work with the folks, the offices they're in, to prepare folks for the legislative breakfast. Because we do expect our representatives to be there in person with us.
And that's the first Saturday in February?
That is, I believe it is February 1st.
Okay.
And then we'll springboard from there to our March 4th one-day trip to Albany, where we will work then, hopefully we're making appointments for that now, not with our locals necessarily, but with many folks from the governor's office who sit on committees like education and ways and means.
A lot happening there.
Yep.
Thank you. With regards to BOCES, as I think all of you know, Mark Okonovich, our former board member and board president, is our representative to the Monroe 1 BOCES board, and they have meeting dates of actually tonight and the 21st, so we'll be able to get updates from Mark, written updates that I'll be able to report on at our 21st meeting. Starting with Carrie Lynn, anything, I'll go other board member reports, anything else going on that anybody wants to report on? Again, I know we're coming off a 2-week break.
Nothing new to report.
Curriculum Council had a meeting scheduled for the 8th. It's been rescheduled. We're going to meet in February. And Hiring Practices Committee continues to do their internal work, focusing on creating positive culture and really focusing on retaining staff.
Thank you.
I'll mention World Language Review in December and maybe late November. Allison and other world language teachers and myself were able to conduct some focus groups with students. That's the first time I've been able to do that kind of work in a curriculum review, and it was really great to have student voice to think about programmatic needs moving forward. So kudos to Allison and the world language teachers for making that happen and letting me be a part of it.
Great, thank you.
I have no meetings to report on, but I did have the opportunity to go to Council Rock the day before we were recessed for holiday break to read to some classrooms, which was really wonderful to stay in your PJs and read. And there was even a visit from the Biblio Burrow delivering books to children on Burrowback.
saw
So
that.
I'm sure that we will hear more about that in future reports, but it was pretty exciting.
I saw a couple of pictures that looked exciting. Thank you. Christina?
I just had one meeting with the New York State School Board Association's DEI committee. We're launching our, I guess it's our 4th year as a committee, and I've been asked to stay on for this final year as we think about terms and how to represent this area. So I've been happy to represent this area 2, for the last almost 4 years, and it'll be my last year.
Thank you for your work in that regard. Just 2 quick updates. Everybody will remember back on December 4th, we passed a vote to be able to move forward with additional construction on Council Rock to sort of get some more equity in the classrooms, if you will, in terms of facilities. And subsequent to that, and we've been doing a lot of work with the construction team and the architects to try to figure out ways to get work done in a timely manner, but also while school's going on. Council Rock staff has always been great about being able to tolerate some construction with the phase one that was done. So a lot of that's being worked now. We've had OACM, which are owner, architect, and construction manager meetings to try to figure out and get that work laid out through 25, 26, and 27. So a lot of challenges ahead that we'll work through, and that was great. And also, and this is a report on another board member, I, like a few of you, had the chance to go see somebody perform as Mrs. Fezziwig in A Christmas Carol at Jiva, and you were outstanding. So great work on your part, Esther.
Thank you.
Okay, BTA, Nicole.
Great. Thank you for letting us share some of the things happening in the classrooms, or our buildings and classrooms. At Council Rock, Mrs. Tripp's class made a kindness book using Book Creator. They brainstormed the importance of being kind, and then independently wrote 2 prompts. Kindness is important because, and I can show kindness by. The Choose Kindness is a link to the book so you can see some of the amazing things they did. That's a first grade classroom, just so you know. And at Frez, Mrs. Harp's technology class, we're working on the habit of mind of striving for accuracy. They use their building skills using the Vexco kits to start the steps of building their own robots. They started by making a marble maze, so you can see some great collaboration there. Mrs. Covert's 5th graders worked on creating new cultures, and they used cultural traits like language, food, clothing to create their own cultures. Mrs. Casey, I'm actually going to borrow this idea. She played phonics battleship with her students, and they made game boards and were reading the words, and what a great way to practice your reading skills.
Except what do you say when you get one? You don't say you sunk my battleship, do you?
I guess you could say, good job. Mrs. Kosif and Mrs. Tantila's 4th grade class had someone from Cornell University, the 4-H group that works through them. They offer workshops, and they came and talked about seed germination and farming, anything related to agriculture. They came up with an engineering activity to think about how to package apples in a less plastic use way. They're going to have the person from Cornell come back and do another project with them in the future, but you can see some of their great constructions there. At Frez in art, students in 3rd grade worked on their abstract self-portraits. They created a stamp with a symbol that represents a part of their culture, and then they used that to print a background for their portraits. They went through how to prepare the artwork and what that might look like in terms of a gallery or a museum. They're going to create origami mandalas showing symmetry, and then again they have that background. I'm sorry, that was the 5th grade that did the radial symmetry. They talked about fractions and how to collaborate again to create that. So great job there. 4th graders in Mrs. Dashili's class made a community outreach project, and they took on the perspective of adoptable animals from Lollipop Farm and wrote persuasive paragraphs to try and help the animals get adopted. And the class had an out-of-school meetup at Lollipop Farm so that students could meet who they actually, meet the pet they wrote about. And you can see some work there and a couple of the letters. At 12 Corners, Marianne Walters' German classes learned about St. Nicholas Day. They put their shoes in the hallway to see if St. Nick would bring a treat, and that did happen. Students in Spanish 8 with Mr. Dennison and Mrs. Palmer, they worked on a cultural project to create molas, which are a fabric craft made by the Kuna tribe from Panama. They designed and created their own mullahs using paper instead of fabric, and then they voted for the best 3 in each class. And you have the color version. They're really striking.
It's hard to choose the best 3. They're all beautiful.
They did such a beautiful job. And also at TCMS, Julie Whipple's Science 6 had 3 different sets of visitors come in. The Shinshanin came in to they came in and presented about molecules essential for metabolism, and they talked about healthy eating not only here in the U.S., but what that looks like in Israel. They brought in hummus and pita, which is always a positive. Vicki Howard, who's one of our wonderful parents in the district, she's a physician assistant and came and taught, again, to link to the microbiome unit. And she talked about some of the medical procedures. The students came up with great questions around that to help them understand gastroenterology. And then Dr. Lizelle, who's a parent of Alex Loomis, and she's a U of R professor, she came in to connect metabolism and tendons, and they were able to see video clips of tendons at work, and that was exciting. And they were also able to manipulate handheld models, which is just so wonderful that we have all of these great resources of families in our district that are willing to come in and share that. And lastly, at the high school, 12th grade law and government classes had guest speakers. They had Federal Prosecutor Hartford, who's a BHS alum. They had our Police Chief David Catoldi. They had Defense Attorney, who's a parent of 3 BHS alumni, Peter Polano, and then the Monroe County Medical Examiner, Robert Zerbe. Ms. Byrne and Mr. Allen's physics and optics class went to MCC's Optical Systems Technology program, and they were able to tour the optic labs, practice making lenses, doing some manual grinding and polishing. And then last but not least, another really great thing that I'd love to steal that idea, having these whiteboards and whiteboard walls to show their thinking and create meaning as they're learning. So this is Mrs. Hall and Mrs. Pruitt's sophomores using the whiteboards to notice, wonder, and think about those ideas. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Great pictures, as always. Thank you, Nicole.
Oh, wait, I think I missed one. Oh,
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Okay.
I did. Mr. Nebel and Mrs. Rumley had a drawing in their tech at the high school. They used technical drawing and CAD software to create wooden snowflakes, and they had to use the problem-solving process. They used a polar array tool to create their own custom patterns, and then they made 2, one to keep and one to give to a faculty member or staff member at the high school, just to show their appreciation and promote kindness.
Beautiful.
There was one
Absolutely
really great one.
beautiful, yeah.
Thanks.
Great. Thank you, as always, really complete. PTSA, Dr. Castillo.
Good evening. In December, the Council Rock PTSA hosted a successful movie night featuring migration, which was sponsored by Wellness 360 and East End Dentistry. Students were introduced to dried chickpeas at the last Fun Food Friday event, and the Square One art sale saw a significant increase in participation, with 20 orders totaling a little over $1,000, of which the PTSA receives 20%. The PTSA also held a toy and book drive from December 2nd to the 13th, with donations benefiting Pencil and Paper and Asbury Store. Looking ahead, the PTSA is preparing for the Summer Extracurricular Fair starting tomorrow, and the second grade movie night on January 10th. Additionally, art room helpers will begin assisting in January. December activities at French Road Elementary School included voting for the yearbook cover and a festive donut and cocoa themed faculty meeting on December 16th. Upcoming events including the summer camp and activity fair starting tomorrow, followed by bingo nights for the 3rd and 4th grades later in the month. We're also excited about the rebuilding of the Fres Little Library, generously undertaken by Tom Hyman with district funds. The 12 Corners Middle School provided hospitality for the December faculty meeting. At the high school, Dr. Hall hosted a Zoom meeting which addressed challenging topics and is now available on YouTube. Dr. Hall also hosted alumni tours on Saturday morning. Alumni from the class of 1964 pledged to donate nearly $1,000, and alumni who have already taken the tour throughout 2024 donated about $550 throughout the year. An upcoming meeting with the principal will focus on course selection discussions. Finally, the PTSA has ordered winter hats for our Spirit Wear collection, and the Giving Tuesday campaign was successful, raising about $650 for the Student Support Fund.
That's great. Thank you very much for that. Dr. McGowan.
Nothing else to report other than the big rocks coming up that we've talked about, and budget will be forthcoming. We'll look forward to the governor's proposal over the next several weeks. And just again want to thank the community for their support, our staff for their incredible work. Certainly Allison, Diana, and Lou for their work and leadership. Danielle, Kelly Coggins, Matt Tappan, Tom Hall, each of the principals for what they've done, but our mental health staff across the district, and our many partners throughout Monroe County, and frankly, from across the state who have sent their well wishes. We'll continue to pray for Annie, Sarah, and their family, and thank all the helpers and become inspired by and take some kind of consolation in the ways people throughout our community have helped. So thank you.
Yeah, I did, because you had mentioned this to me. Chief Cathaldi's been a great partner to work through all this, and
Chief
then police force, because they had to
Cataldi, yep.
process a pretty horrible situation as well. So we're grateful for their work.
And, we really appreciate also the work of Brighton Fire Department, Brighton Police Department. They've really been pretty incredible, too. Thank you.
Thanks. Next up, excuse me, we have second read policies. I'll note for the record, I'm going to read all three of them. We'll be voting on the first two. So the three that are listed in this section on the agenda, policy 7513, medication and personal care items. Letter B, policy 7521, students with life-threatening health condition. And then I'll read policy C, policy 5661, wellness. We're going to push and table that one off a little bit further while there can be some additional review. So I'm putting forward for a motion to approve two policies, policy 7513, medication and personal care items, and then policy 7521, students with life-threatening health condition. Motion to approve.
So moved?
Moved by Sue.
Second.
Seconded by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Next up, we have approval of a professional service contracts for architects and construction manager. I mentioned this briefly in the other member reports as we're trying to move forward with regards to Council Rock, but Dr. McGowan will give you a chance to talk about that.
Really, it's only our agreement to continue to move forward with our partners at SWBR and, a negotiated contract, which I think it's important for the community just to hear that we do this with each of the people that we work with, and the board approves these contracts. And we really work hard to have the right fee structure in place that is fair to both the provider, but also as cost efficient as possible for our community, and provides us the best service possible to make sure that the work is done the right way, and that we have the right people working on it. So thank you for that.
As always, grateful for the work of Lou and the buildings and facilities folks who just do amazing work every day. Questions with regards to this professional service contract? Motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Esther,
Second.
seconded by Christina. All those in favor? There's 3 or 4 words in this world that give me a problem, and that C word after tax and before proceeding is one of them. You whisper it like it's easy for you. I get it. Good for you. This is approval of a settlement recommendation, Miranda, between the Country Club of Rochester and the Town of Brighton tax certiorari proceeding. We have all had a chance to discuss this, and Lou's done an overview for us. It's written up in the agenda and available online. Questions from the board in regards to this settlement recommendation. Motion to approve?
So, good. So moved.
Moved by Carrie Lynn,
Second.
seconded by Karen. All those in favor?
I think if everybody was voting, they should have said, I would like to vote for the. You just say it fast enough, it sounds right.
Yeah, if I sort of fumble through it and do this to the microphone,
That was great.
right? Yeah, good. I'm sorry, consent agenda, we've got the approval of personnel changes, approval of recommendations from the Committee on Special Ed and from the Committee on Preschool Education. We do have one fundraising activity come up, running the concession stand, looks like next week at the atrium foyer of the TCMS, January 15th and January 25th. It's for the PTSA Student Support Fund that we heard Dr. Castillo mention before. Questions with regards to the consent agenda? Motion to approve?
So moved?
Moved by Sue,
Second?
seconded by Esther. All those in favor? Before we adjourn, our thanks as always to our AV and Tech crew, which makes this meeting available to the community. That's Violet and Bill and Mike. Thank you all for your work. And always Dan and Beck and Kim here who get us all our materials and coordinate all the communications. Grateful for your work in that regard. And Kim for a birthday coming up in a couple of days.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob.
With that, I will offer a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Carrie Lynn,
Second.
seconded by Karen. All those in favor? We are adjourned.
This has been a special presentation from the Brighton Central School District Board of Education.